Hello, I'm Chris Brown, Fleet Group Editor at Bobit, and welcome to the next episode of Fast Forward Interview Series. In this episode, I interviewed Tony Douglas, CEO and President of Smith System. Tony and I discuss Smith's recent acquisition of Driving Dynamics and how the combined companies will be structured. We also talk about the latest trends in fleet safety training and the pressing issues in safety that fleets face today. Well, hey, Tony, thanks for being here and welcome to this edition of Fast Forward Video Series.
Chris, thanks so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, sure. Hey, let's get right into it. So Smith Systems has acquired Driving Dynamics. It's one of the biggest news in fleet safety so far in this new year, right? Let's just get into some of the details of the acquisition.
Yeah, very happy to share that news with your viewers. Driving Dynamics has been a very formidable competitor for us for a number of years. I've been CEO at Smith System for 20 years. And, in any case where we would go up against another company for, a piece of business, Driving Dynamics was right there. And, we would get beaten by Driving Dynamics from time to time. And they have a niche that they serve extremely well, outstanding people. The leadership there, known to you, and again, many of the viewers of this interview today, guys like Art Liggio and Tony Vinciguerra. I think we had a situation that was kind of the intersection of timing and opportunity. The timing was right for those two gentlemen to be considering retirement. The opportunity came forth for us to be able to, have that opportunity to acquire Driving Dynamics. And, I can tell you now, just almost a month in, we closed on the transaction on December 30th. It's been terrific. Art and Tony did a great job preparing the team for going forward. Debbie Balestra, who was the chief operating officer at the time that we acquired Driving Dynamics, will lead the business for us. And we were able to keep all of the employees. It's our intention to keep the brand in place. When you make an acquisition, at least it's been my experience, you're acquiring people, employees, legacy knowledge, and customers. And to maintain both, we want to carry forward the 30-year legacy and continue to offer the outstanding products and services that they've been offering all through their rich history. And again, we think on both sides, we can learn from each other. We can learn things from Driving Dynamics. Driving Dynamics can learn some things from us as well, and we can be a much stronger offering in the marketplace.
Sure. Okay. So fleet customers will access Driving Dynamics as they have in the past. It's just obviously under the ownership of Smith Systems is the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it will be easier to for the customers to compare and contrast our two approaches, which are similar in many ways, and there are some differences, as you might imagine as well. We're also opening up a larger array of products and services, which we hope will enable fleet customers to have more of a one-stop shop when it comes to fleet safety products and services.
Sure, great. Yeah, I wanted to get into that, but also just really kind of use this time to talk about just sort of fleet safety training in general. I mean, we've gone through one of the most disruptive times in the past, 100 years, right? And safety is certainly not immune to it, fleet safety. Can you just get into how you see the market has maybe changed in the last few years to start?
Yeah, happy to do that. And perhaps I'll make a couple of comments around what seems to have always been the same and what hasn't really changed. And that is that drivers, in many cases, were never trained well. We know now the situation in high schools, for example, where there was in-person behind the wheel driver training taking place, has mostly been eliminated. It's been supplanted by e-learning. And so there is and always has been, and I expect there always will be an absence of recognition of the seriousness of driving, whether it's driving, your POV or whether it's driving in a commercial application. So certainly that hasn't changed. But what we have seen change, I think, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to get into politics or get into social science or anything like that. I think the facts are, and statistics bear it out, whether you're looking at NHTSA's statistics, whether you're looking at the National Safety Council, that the roads are a less safe place to be. And, it's in one sense counterintuitive because vehicles are safer than they've ever been. Technological enhancements are more prevalent than they've ever been. And you can even argue, though some will, reference failing infrastructure. For the most part, the roads in the United States are better than they've ever been. And yet, the fatality rate, the collision rate, they're going in the wrong direction. The other thing we see, I suspect everyone that has joined us and is watching this program sees the same thing. That is, there is less courtesy on the road. People are driving faster. There's no question about that. And distractions are not getting better. It was around 2009 when focus began to be placed by the federal government, at least, on distracted driving.
So what are clients looking for? We're more in a digital realm, I guess, in terms of training. And then maybe how are you guys meeting those new needs?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It's not going to surprise you to know that, that we have, a very parochial viewpoint on the differences in training. E-learning, we offer e-learning. We've got about 700 courses in a very broad library. So it's not that we don't believe in e-learning. We've made a tremendous investment in e-learning and will continue to. But as it relates to training that will change behaviors, it's pretty tough to accomplish that through e-learning. I liken it to whether you're a golfer and you're modeling your swing after Rory McIlroy, or you're a tennis player, you're modeling your swing after Roger Federer. You get the choice, right? 15 minutes of a YouTube video, improve your serve, improve, driving off the tee, or you get 8 hours on the course with one of those guys, or on the court with one of those guys to help you improve your tennis game. Which one do you think is going to be more likely to achieve behavior change? Well, that's not an unrealistic comparison to what happens in what we do from a training standpoint behind the wheel, whether it's the Smith System approach or it's the driving dynamics approach. Now, COVID forced us to take a look at exposures for a season. So what's happened now on the driving dynamics side is we have a virtual, just like this, just like through Zoom or one of the other platforms, a classroom presentation that's interactive, it's live, and very similar to what was taking place in the classroom at Driving Dynamics. And similarly at Smith System, there is e-learning set of courses that are prerequisites before going out on the road. So that was the first step, using technology to help eliminate some of those exposure potentials. And then in the driving dynamics case, they moved to radio communication with the driver doing maneuvers on closed course. In the Smith System case, with a barrier in place, one-on-one instruction rather than 1-on-5. Again, getting that classroom theory, if you will, done beforehand. So that was not best case in either scenario, but something we were able to do to help us get through the pandemic. Now, we've got some customers who like that approach. They like, for example, in the case of Driving Dynamics, being able to break up that full training day into 2 sessions. One session learning just like this, through this kind of medium, and then the other session being outside, on course. We expect we'll be keeping those going to some extent, though we're working to try to get back to getting that interaction more in person, with classroom, because it's just so hard to replicate. So customers have been asking for that. We've been able over the last couple of years to meet that need. And we do have some customers that have decided, for whatever reason, to move more toward a completely either virtual or e-learning environment where there is no classroom instruction, there is no behind the wheel instruction taking place. We can certainly meet that need, but as with the illustration that I made, kind of at the beginning of these comments, it just is not as sticky as the in-person approach.
Hey, Tony, let's just kind of touch on the kind of the pressing issues in fleet safety today. We talked about a few of them. Distraction, right? How do we combat distraction, and how do you view distraction? It's getting worse, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it is getting worse. And the stakeholders that I think can have the most impact are perhaps not as motivated to exert that influence, at least at this point, as they could be.
Okay.
Who am I talking about?
Yeah, who are you talking about?
Yeah, so regulators, for sure.
Okay.
Government, automobile manufacturers. It does seem as a whole, and some are much better than others in terms of their approach to guarding against distracted driving, distraction influences. There is so much technology being built into automobiles today. It requires a tremendous amount of interaction from the driver, and anything that takes the driver's eyes off the windshield is contributing to distracted driving. And the technology exists, and there are companies in the marketplace that can offer a fleet the ability through a device or through a potential software change to disable devices, mobile phones, PDAs, and so forth, while vehicles are in motion. I think ultimately, just like with drunk driving, that's the only way to stop distractions, right? The only way not to be drunk driving is not to drink. Yeah. The only way to eliminate distractions when you're behind the wheel, is to disable those distractions. So what are the chances that that's going to happen? Your guess is as good as mine. The interesting thing to me is that I think because of Mothers Against Drunk Driving and because of the social stigma, we saw tremendous improvement in drunk driving incidents. Everybody kind of accepts, communicating on a PDA as a birthright. If it dings, they want to know. They want to know what it is, or they want to use that time at the stoplight to take their mind completely and disengage it from the driving task and engage it in whatever they're reading or seeing on that PDA. It's very difficult to switch back and forth and to do it effectively. And if you notice that at stop signs and at red lights, that's what folks are doing. There's now a delay, and it's more than the look left, right, left delay. It's a protracted delay of people getting started when a light turns green because they're finishing up typing a message.
Certainly, we're getting into a situation where we're on this path to autonomy that seems definitely a lot longer than we originally thought. But in the meantime, we've got these level 2, now even approaching quote unquote level 3 ADAS systems. Seemingly, we could be in an era of false security, that these systems are going to do more than they really can.
Yeah, an example I like to use is the seatbelt in the airbag, right? So if you don't wear your seatbelt and an airbag deploys, it's worse than if you were, wearing your seatbelt, because of the design of those airbags. And of course, those airbags deploy in essentially a nanosecond, and they're deploying with strength that assumes that you're restrained. And if you're not restrained and you're much closer to the airbag, the physical damage that can take place can be extraordinary. So one doesn't work without the other, right? Airbags, new technology, they're great. You've got curtains and things above your head and on your sides and in front of you. But if you're not restrained, it's more like you become a soccer ball and those airbags become the foot, right? Coming after you. So in a very similar way, when you think about ADAS technologies, if the driver's not engaged, if the driver's already not driving defensively, using good skills, you can have the same kind of effect. The lull into that false sense of security, and they're designed to work together, right? ADAS systems are not designed to be beneficial to someone who's not paying attention. Their cues, the lights, the light, the motion, everything that's built into those systems are designed to trigger a response from somebody who's engaged. And so, yeah, I think there's no question there is a false sense of security that you get from those systems. But you can be a much better driver if you're well trained and you're driving well with the benefit of all of those ADAS systems. They can certainly make a good driver a better driver. They can't make a bad driver a better driver.
Sure. Well, that's great. And hey, Tony, thank you for joining us. Got some great insights into where the market is going and really what the challenges are. And I think Smith and Driving Dynamics together is really going to meet those challenges. So we'll be here to report on it. And thanks so much,
Chris. Thanks for your time once again, and to everyone, be safe.